Hello, everyone. We are live from Ozora Festival, and we have a very special guest today, Pierre Vasarely, the grandson of Victor Vasarely. I am here with my colleague Blaise and myself, I'm Pony. Welcome and welcome. Thank you for taking some time to be with us.
Jó napot kívánok!
Perfect. That's the Hungarian way to say good day. So we invited Pierre because we have a very special Victor Vasarely exhibition this year, which is a new step for us in the festival scene, because of those of you who visit psychedelic festivals know that visual arts play a very important role in the whole psychedelic experience. And this year we had many anniversaries, the festival, and we decided to reach back to the roots of this visionary art, psychedelic art, which we think 1960s op art played a very important role in. So thanks again for letting us make it happen and the open-mindedness that we bring your grandfather's work to the festival. I think everyone is amazed by the exhibition. I really wanted to ask you a few personal insights about your grandfather, because we know his work and the approach he had towards changing how art is presented to the masses, to the public. What is the first thing that you think of when you think about him?
The first thing is maybe the first time I came with him and my grandmother in Pécs. It was in 1987 when we went for the opening of the Vasarely Museum in Budapest. But during one day we made a tour in Pécs, and it was so important for him. Even if he has spent only 4 years, his first years in Pécs, you can't imagine how much he felt about the time he spent there, and how much his roots were so important. I just can tell you that in France he moved from Budapest to Paris in 1930, but he was always speaking in Hungarian with his wife, with his two sons. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to speak any Hungarian, except the bad words, but that he has taught to me. But he was always counting and singing in Hungarian. So each time it was possible for them, to have a kolbász, to have some körözőt, to have some egri cover, to have some palinka. It was the Hungarian way of life in a way, when they were living in Paris or in the suburbs. So that kind of man, when I discovered him, it was another one, not the artist, the so famous artist that everyone was recognizing through his work, but someone very simple in a way, and he loved his native country, his native city. So it's maybe the first thing I'm thinking about my grandfather. I was very close. I was his only grandchild, so we had a special connection in a way. But yes, someone very simple, and I think that from his education at the Műhely in Budapest between 1928 and 1930, with his master Sándor Bortnik, so important in his work, the Hungarian folklore, so colorful, was very important to him. So maybe more for his wife, Clara, because they met at the same time at the Műhely. So she was an artist too, and maybe better than he was, when she was a student. Unfortunately, she had to stop her career in 1950s. But yes, the Hungarian folklore with these colors, so many colors, played an important role, in his work. So it's important to give these two information about the Műhely and that folklore, which was so important for him and for his work.
Did you spend time with him when he was working on his pieces?
Yes, I was lucky enough to spend all my holidays with him and with my grandmother, whether in Gordes in south of France or in Anet-sur-Marne near Paris. So I had a special relationship because in a way it was not a grandfather like we can think about when we are thinking about family relation. He was always busy, always working. It was the relation that Chandor Botnik talked to his students in that at that time. An artist or a graphic artist has to work, has to work a lot, and in order to earn their life, and thanks to that, to earn money and then pay everything they can. Not the artist that had to be that was in another life in a way. They had to show that they were able to earn their own life and then able to produce their work. So it's very important in his life. It's from my first souvenirs in the 70s when I was 10 years old. I have always seen my grandfather working in his studio, even on holidays and on weekends. So no time for play, except when I was there. And he was able to talk to me, to teach me to play chess, to play goyo, to play billiard, to play cards. So each time I was there, I was a good example for him to have some good time in a way. But it's important. All the day he was always working, thinking about his next idea and his next project. He had to make these two museums in Pécs in 1976, in Budapest in 1987, the two ones in France, in Gordes, in that castle that he has restored in 1970, and the foundation in Aix-en-Provence in 1976, so the same year that it was inaugurated in Pécs, that museum. And the two other Vasarely Center in New York and Oslo. So, it's important to understand that his only will was to bring art to everyone, to the to more people he can. So before all the other institutions in France or in Europe, maybe 40, 50 years ahead, behind in a way. So he was very, very visionary in a way. So yes, you have to understand that that kind of man he was. A gentleman in a way, but always working, producing for his art and for the art of everyone.
That's kind of exactly what I was interested in, because I've seen many pictures and he's always a little bit stern, strict, sitting and working. And I think it must have been an incredible output. So apart from playing with you, how did he relax? Music, I would be interested in him as the man who's,
It took some time every day, so he has a very strict agenda, waking at 7, and he was able to go after his toilet and his shower and breakfast at 7:30, 15 to 8. He was in his studio. Then he stopped at 11:30 to have a long walk or a long run in the garden. Then when he had invited people to work, he had 30 minutes, 45 minutes appointments before having his lunch. Then the lunch always at 1 o'clock. 1 p.m. Then at 1:30 a siesta for 30 minutes. And at 2 o'clock he was able to go back to his studio until 6. Then he was able to read his newspaper or to play chess against the newspaper. So when I wasn't there, he was playing alone chess. And sometimes before eating, not sometimes, every day, he took the time to play goyo with someone. And if there was anybody, he was able to play left hand against right hand.
Wow.
So it was in a way the possibility for him to escape a little bit. And in the evening, just after the dinner that he had with his wife, with Claire, she was able to make a special Curieusette for himself almost every week, and some very light dinner. He was able to read some specialized book in sciences, or in geometry, or in mathematics, and then he slept at let's say 9:30. So it was, something very planned. He was quite upset about the way he had the exhibitions and was obliged to go to his own vernissage. To him, it was quite a lack of time, so
Yes.
so it was difficult to handle. But it's my souvenir when I was a kid until 1992, the year he stopped creating.
Do you think he would have enjoyed coming here and participating in an event like this?
He loved two types of music: Bach, about the architecture, is it?
In classical.
Yeah, and New Orleans jazz. So in the building in Aix-en-Provence, we have to do it again now. But during 20 years, every 2 days we had Bach or jazz. He used to like the music that was on the radio, everyday life, but he was much more specialized in that kind of music.
So would he be humming along to ABBA, like Dancing Queen, or no?
He loved danced on Charleston.
Ah.
Yes, and I remember when we went in 1987 in Budapest for that opening of the museum. At the end of each official dinner or lunch, he was able to stand up and to sing himself alone,
Wow.
and then asked sometimes to the gypsy musicians to have some special music. And he was able to invite anyone to dance. So yes, he liked. I'm sure that he would have come to Ozora because he was very curious about everything. Even if he wouldn't have been to be a special, a special travel to Ozora. But if he has been to Budapest or to Pécs, I think he would have come because he was very curious and he would have liked to see all these young people. Working on music, working on their art. So yes, he was very curious. So in that way, I'm not sure he would have done the same thing in France, but in Hungary, definitely yes.
We would be incredibly blessed also to welcome him, maybe in just spirit. But Pony mentioned that psychedelics kind of started with op art, and many people think that Mr. Vasarely was the founding father of op art, and with that, the founding father of psychedelic movement in art, which happened simultaneously with or maybe even a little bit before the Californian Revolution. You have seen the festival. In your view, how does psychedelia and changing your mindset, stepping out of your normal perception, how is that?
Under Bortnik, his first job was during the first 9 years, just before the Second World War, was to work in the graphic design for advertisement and for pharmaceutical companies. So he was very creative, very well known, earned a lot of his life, working in that field. As soon as he has accomplished his day, he came back at home and worked on his own researches. So he was trying to make a kind of alphabet, plastic alphabet. It is how he called it in the 50s. But he began to work on that alphabet in the 30s, and we can find some works, very important ones, which show how he has evaluate in all the next 30-40 years. So during these 60 years of creation, you can see really a normal evolution, but definitely all the works he has made in the 30s are in the same quality and the same development and the one from the 50s, 60s, even if we're not talking in these years about kinetic or op art. So he was really preparing his studio, working on shapes, working on colors, making numeration on each of these elements, researches on his own work to accomplish that folklore, which enabled him to work then with other assistants, other artists, in order to be faster in his researches. So you are talking about psychedelism. It's much more about the spirit and the mind thought that he was able to manage in order to make his own creation. So all these works were so definite in his mind that it was easy to understand where he wanted to go. And the best point is to notice that he wanted to pass from the classical art in a way to architectural one. For him, the artist had the main aim was to work with urbanists and architects in order to bring art to everyone, because it's important to know that in these years he was communist, as all the intellectual in Western Europe countries. And thanks to that, in a way, he wanted to bring art to everyone, especially to the poor people, which were not able to have art around them. Because for him, art was only in these years for in the bourgeois city, but not in the suburbs. So it's why, in fact, we have decided in 2010, when Page was European Capital of Culture, to make the first contest of Victor Vasarely about art in public space. So with these ideas, which come definitely from the Bauhaus. So it's very important to put the Bauhaus in that field. We don't understand anything to Victor Vasarely's works if we don't put Vasarely into the history of the Bauhaus. So that's the main point, to bring art to everyone and to make art socially accessible to everybody.
So today we know that he achieved a lot with his work, and I think he really did what he was determined to do. But do you think he felt that way, like he was successful in his quest?
He knew in his life that he has succeeded, but he was a little bit frustrated not to have make all his wishes with the architects. In fact, some of them have understood that what he wanted to do. Some of them has proposed to him to make a collaboration. Some of them were French or Venezuelan, but in that time he was really fighting the system and saying that in every faculty in France, in Europe, no architect school was really working on the collaboration with the urbanists, with the colorists, with the doctors, with the artists, with the students, and so on. All these ideas, he was not the first one to give them. One more time, these ideas came from the Bauhaus, but he was in a way frustrated not to have accomplished all he wanted to do. But he knew from the beginning that thanks to his two museums in Hungary, Pécs and Budapest, the foundation in France, Gordes and Aix-en-Provence, that he couldn't go further. He did all he wanted without any help from the state or from private companies. So he wanted to be free in a way. So maybe he was the first artist in the world to pay for his own museum in a way. So certainly he was a little bit megalo, but without that you can't do anything. And he wanted to give his works to people from Pécs, to people from Budapest and all over Hungary, to show. It's why he has chosen that museum in Budapest, in Óbuda, in a very very popular area, because he wanted to give the access free to everyone in the area, So it was not possible, unfortunately. But he wanted to do it there. So it shows how generous he was in a way, and yes, we have to understand through his own words, because he was not only an artist. He has written a lot of small sentences, small phrases about his conception about art for everyone. And we can you imagine that in 1949 he has written something like he doesn't want to send 40 original works to Japan, because with the travel, the boat or the plane, it's difficult. He much prefer to send slides. Why? In order to project it on the walls. It was 1949. So it's very visionary in a way. The same for the art of Chevalet. He said nowadays the artists have to stop working on Chevalet because it is ancestral, it is old time. The artist has to work with the elements he has under his hands, new materials, new technologies. So he has worked on his own researches without any help of the computer. So it's important because, as you said, it is so its creation was so important about that geometrical shapes and forms that only his brain was able to conceive that kind of work. He has written in 1971 in the status of the foundation in France that he wanted to work with the architects, the urbanists, and so on, the teachers and students, and the computer. 1971, no computer. The only ones which existed at the time were in the US Army or the US universities. But he knew from that time that something was going on, and one day maybe new technology will assist artists. So now it's why that many artists, young artists, are referring to Victor Vasarely, saying that he was 50 years in advance on his time. And it's why maybe because many, we were talking about that before, you have in Hungary so many specialists in new technologies. So maybe it's something which has to deal with the Hungarian way of thinking or education.
Might be based on the mind to bring the people who create something from this inspiration. Thank you so much for.
Maybe one more thing. I'm very touchy about what I have seen, because about all these youth working on that field and working on their own inspiration. I really do think that he would have been very happy, and I'm very happy to see that in this country, each time I come, you are doing since let's say 15 years. More?
15 years, yes.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best for next years, and bravo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.